It's Monday, and you know what that means? It's time for, well, I guess it's not time for an unboxing, is it? Well, I'll be darned. So if it's not time for an unboxing, what time is it for? Well, because I'm doing the long form for this little guy right here, the Retroid Pocket 5, I have to fill in the Monday, and I was pondering what should I do for you guys, and I decided to create a video about my favorite candy bar style device. Yes, not one that's on the market, but my dream one. So, how would I create my dream one? Well, I take inspiration from some of my favorite devices of the year, whether we're talking handhelds or controllers. And then I put it together and I say, let's create a crazy Frankenstein. And I don't have any CAD style skills. So, no, this isn't going to be some beautiful CAD 3D rendering. I'm sorry. If someone wants my picture to be able to do what they will and create a 3D CAD, I would love it. And maybe if they have a 3D printer, actually create a 3D printer version of it, I would be over the hill. I would be over the moon if something like that happened. But today I can't do that because I don't have those skills. But what I do have some skills for is cutting paper and creating dimensions of actual things that I think would work. So all of these created inspiration for my device. But what does my actual dream device look like? Let's find out right after this. Hey fam, Swati Kong Crap P-Nick here, and thank you for joining me for another episode of P-Nick's Handhelds. And this week, instead of an unboxing video, as I mentioned, we're doing a dream device, and it's a candy bar dream style device. I'll do another video in the future for my dream clamshell style device, but this week we're gonna do dream candy bar. And first and foremost, as I've mentioned on many of my videos, I am a PlayStation guy, not an Xbox guy. So I love the controls of the PlayStation. That said, I know not everyone is, and as I've also mentioned, one of my favorite categories for all things is customizability. So I don't believe in holding people back, and I believe everyone should be able to have their console the way they want. So I wanted to copy the size of the buttons and the sticks from PlayStation, but also copy a Ayaneo 3's device where they have Hot-Swappable. So in my dream device, we're going to be able to take these and swap them out and turn them 180, turn these 180, and you can choose if you want sticks on top on both sides, if you want sticks down below, like on a PlayStation controller, or if you want offset sticks where your stick is up here and your stick is down here, it's up to you. I want to give you that ability. So that's where we're going first and foremost with that for my option number one. Because again, controls are such an important thing. That's why they're one of my categories. So option number one, controls, that's what you're going to get, is based on the PlayStation controller. Now, I'm sure you saw this nice little Anbernic, and you're thinking to yourself, P-Nick, what is this budget Anbernic device doing in your list as well? Well, first and foremost, I love Anbernic buttons. They make some of the softest, quietest buttons. I don't want clickety-clackety buttons. I want nice and quiet buttons. So I want to model them after the 3.5XX Pro. That's right. I'm going to say, give me the quietness factor of these buttons for my dream device. So what else am I doing? Well, I like the width of the RP5 screen. So I said to myself, P-Nick, you love the size of this, but you want something that's retro focused because that's the vast majority of retro games, but something that will also be awesome on modern games as well. So that's why I looked at these two and I said, what could we do to kind of give us some kind of combination of both? Well, first and foremost, as I mentioned, I like the width of this screen. I think it's a really good width. So a 5.5-inch 16:9 screen is really great. But since most of our games are 4:3 aspect ratio, I needed to merge these two together. So how do I merge these two together? Well, I've created a couple cutouts here before we get to my dream design. So as you can see here, this matches up with this. So there we go, nice and beautiful. You can see my lines are pretty good. So what this is a 6-inch 4:3 aspect ratio screen with a 1920 by 1440 aspect ratio. So that'll give you a perfect 1080p screen in the middle for the 16:9 aspect ratio. That's 5 by 5 inches. And then you get a 6-inch diagonal for your full screen. But what does that look like if you play Game Boy Advance? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, that would give us a 5.76-inch screen with a 1920 by 1280 screen. So you get the best of all three worlds. You get 16:9 content at a good 5.5-inch screen, old school games at a 6-inch screen, and Game Boy Advance games at a nice 5.76-inch screen. No other device gives you this great combination, so I love that we would have that combination with it. So those were my inspirations for the screens. Now, I'm still inspired by this screen, but I'm also inspired by this screen. So I want a 1080p 120 hertz screen. Now, if you're asking yourself, what does this look like? Well, actually, one of the cool things is this is only slightly bigger than, as you can see, the AYN Odin 2 Portals screen. So if you like the height of the Odin 2, but you want the width of that, you get my dream 4x3 6-inch screen that gives us kind of that middle ground. So what else did I love about this device? Well, a couple different things. First, I like the audio. The audio is really good. Not the best in the world, but we can make it better. So let's make it better. In my dream device, we're going to have 4 speakers. Not 2, we're going to have 4. So what are we going to do? We're going to move these and put them up higher. So that way they're facing you more when you're playing. There's no chance of you covering them up while you're playing a game. I think that would be really great. So take those, move them up, and then we're going to move down and have something similar, but instead of speakers that focus on the mids and highs, which if you're not familiar, the mid is basically your voice, and the high is anything that doesn't produce bass. So I want to have the mid and highs up higher. Then down in kind of this corner area, I want to have about 1/2-inch subwoofers on each side to give us the bass. That way we're not blocking them ever, but we're getting great bass down below and we're getting the great mids and highs up top. So we have all 3, mids, lows, and highs. Now again, I like the PlayStation buttons, so I wanted to go with full-size PlayStation buttons rather than these, but also I want them to be quiet, like this guy, where you can play in bed with somebody next to you and you're not going to wake them up. Now, what does that mean, of course? Well, first, nice to have a centralized USB-C port and, of course, a headphone jack. And I want to have 2 microSD card slots, even though it will be Android. I want 2 because 2 is always better than 1. And then have another USB-C port up top. The reason for this is simple. I want to be able to create a dock that you plug it in just sitting down and it slides into the spot down here. But then I also want to be able to have a USB-C port to be able to go out to HDMI. And you can consoleize your device. Of course, you're going to have Bluetooth, so you can enjoy some great controllers, like the PlayStation controller. If you want to use this, you'll be able to use this. That's at least in my dream device. And of course, I like having these buttons. So we'll have start and select up top. And we'll also have the home and back buttons down below. A little different layout, but that is kind of the inspiration I was thinking. But again, we're going for a smaller screen. Oddly enough, my handy dandy stencil here is roughly the same size. I would probably make these nubbins a little bit smaller on the bottom, but all things considered, you can see it's actually basically the same size as the AYN Odin 2 Portal, even though we have a smaller screen. Why is that? Well, let's flip it over and find out. So you can see the black are my speakers, and here are the analog sticks, full-size PlayStation analog sticks, full-size PlayStation D-pad. Of course, this isn't the exact replica, obviously, because, well, I couldn't easily find this shape. But this cross is basically the same size as that. And then you have the full-size PlayStation buttons as well to give you a full console experience. Again, you have great availability of the buttons here and here. You still have the analog sticks, easy access whenever you're trying to play. But again, the idea is there would be some other button around here and here, for example, or a toggle to slide. I didn't include that in my draft, and I wish I had now that I think about it, but it would either be here or down below. And the slide would be a mechanical piece that would slide in to tell it what orientation this is in and slide back out so you could pop these out and rotate them 180 degrees. Have the stick up here and the D-pad down here if you want. So I wanted that full console controller availability of buttons and comfort, but I wanted the space and I wanted unique audio. Now, of course, I know this would not be a cheap device. I'm not dreaming of a cheap device. Some guys, whenever they create their dream device, they're like, oh, I just want something that's under $100. I want something under $150. And I can appreciate that. Those devices are nice. But for me, that's not going to be a dream device. My dream device is kicking butt on PlayStation 3. So you're going to have the same thing that you have on these high-end devices that are coming out for the end of this year. You're going to have the option of a Snapdragon G3 Gen 3, or you're going to have a Snapdragon 8 Elite. I think that would be the way to go. Maybe the Snapdragon 8 Elite 5 that's coming out at the beginning of next year, since obviously it would take time to produce and do all of the testing. But those would be the two types of SoCs that I would be looking for, with up to 24 gigabytes of RAM, because again, we want to kick butt on PlayStation 3 games. We want to kick butt on Windlater and everything else. So anything from 12, 16, or 24 gigabytes of RAM, I want on this device. Of course, I want another 8,000 milliamp hour battery like the Odin 2 portal that sits below it, which again, since it's roughly the same size, that will be easily enough for them to do. I think 8,000 is that sweet spot. So let's go with that for my dream device. Again, this is not a perfect representation. This is me just working in Word, creating things the size I want them to after I verify the size of the D-pad and the outermost part of the analog sticks and all of that. I'm just trying to recreate things in the image that I would love. Now, of course, I want these to be TMR sticks. So full size TMR, absolutely. And then Hall effect triggers, absolutely. Probably something similar to what Sony does with this, because Sony does really good analog triggers. So what would my dream handheld go for? Well, on the low end, probably a Ayaneo style pricing, probably close to $400, $450, with the 6-inch OLED panel that would obviously be custom made because nothing's ever been made with that resolution. And then on the high end, you're probably looking at $650, $700, which is still cheaper than the Windows-based devices that are coming out, because this would be an Android-based device. But I think it would be a lot of fun. It would be super fun to have all of the customization, obviously. I also want things like, these mappable buttons in case people want those mappable buttons. I want the same ergonomics that this shell has, not the base Odin 2 portal, but with this, it feels really fantastic. So I want it to feel like this whenever I'm playing it. I think that's a really good feel while you're trying to play your games. So that's what I'm looking for. So, again, I know it's not the most beautiful thing in the world. It's not arts and crafts with Nick, because P-Nick, well, he's never done these types of things before. But I wanted to do something like this for you guys, because I think it's a great and interesting exercise to think about. If you could make your own handheld, how would you make it look? And I didn't even mean for it to be the same size as the Odin 2 portal. I thought about making it shorter because, again, a much narrower screen. But alas, that was not to be. But again, if you want to see the difference here, let's go edge to edge. You can see all of the screen real estate that I've chopped off. But because I have these at an angle like a PlayStation controller, I think that's better. So, of course, that's the way I wanted to go. Now, could I make these more 100% accurate and make it probably a little more narrow? Absolutely. And of course, mine would not be straight like this. It would have nice curves to it to make it comfortable to hold. But this is just a sheet of paper. So I'm sorry, it's not perfect. But if you want my Word document that I created with this, and try to make a 3D rendering or try to make a 3D print job of this to just kind of give it a real world example, I would love to see it. And I would be thrilled to be able to share it with everyone else. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to me at contact@pnix-handhelds.com, and I'll be happy to get that out to you as soon as possible. So that's it for today. I've created a crazy Frankenstein device that could probably be made much better. So hey, Ayaneo, AYN, Anbernic, whoever, if any of you are watching this and you want to create a super premium 4:3 aspect ratio device, I think we have a winner right here. But let me know what you guys think of this handheld down in the comments below. Don't be shy. If you think I'm crazy, tell me I'm crazy. If you think this is the best thing since sliced bread, hey, I would love to hear it too. But either way, I just want to hear what you have to say. And if I've earned your subscription, I hope that you'll remember to subscribe and hit that bell so you can have great upcoming videos. about the Anbernic RG476H and other devices that are coming out, like the AYN Thor, AYN Odin 3, Ayaneo Pocket DS, and the Conquer Pocket Fit. All of those are coming by the end of the year, hopefully, assuming that they get them to me by the end of the year. So I'll make that content available to you as soon as I get those devices. And until next time, this has been P. Nick.